It always starts the same. A couple sits at a kitchen table, coffee cooling in their favorite chipped mugs, the kind that have outlived 3 dishwashers and 1 golden retriever. They're not rich, but they worked hard, saved more than most, and for the first time in decades, there's no alarm clock in the morning, just the slow stretch of time. And then comes the question that feels simple until it isn't. Where should we retire? It sounds peaceful, hopeful, like choosing a view for the next chapter of life. But behind that question hides a quiet storm. Because every year, somewhere between the brochures and the moving trucks, retirees walk straight into a trap. Every year, homes get smarter. But the decisions, they get harder. The illusion begins with sunshine, or a beach house, or that silver-haired couple smiling on a golf cart, driving towards some golden sunset future. They call it freedom. But sometimes freedom costs more than the job ever did. This is a story about 10 states, places that promise rest, but quietly extract more than they give, where fixed income meets rising everything, and comfort becomes a calculation. These aren't warnings carved in red text on state websites. They're never mentioned in the best places to retire articles, because they don't want you to know. These are traps, beautiful ones, with real consequences. Let's begin. Number 10, Michigan. At a glance, Michigan looks like a bargain. Housing appears reasonable. The pace is slower. You'll find charm in the rows of lakefront cottages, and Main Street's barely changed since the 70s. But cost isn't always what you pay up front. It's what your money has to survive through. Michigan taxes most forms of retirement income, including pensions, 401ks, and IRA withdrawals. Even if your Social Security is exempt at lower incomes, the structure penalizes those who worked for decades. And winter arrives aggressively. Older homes here mean older heating systems. Utility bills surge through November, December, and linger into April. And while homes may cost less than in coastal states, maintenance costs more in the cold. Salted roads destroy cars. Roofs need attention. Homeowners' insurance doesn't shrink when you stop working. And there's something else no one mentions. Time moves differently when it's minus 10 degrees, and driving becomes a risk. Many retirees find themselves confined indoors, not by illness, but by ice. Michigan isn't hostile on purpose, but for retirees, it is indifferent. Number 9, Rhode Island. The smallest state, but with disproportionately large pressures. Rhode Island taxes tax most types of retirement income, and for many, that's where the stress begins. But it's not where it ends. Property taxes run high. But what makes Rhode Island difficult is compounded cost. The home you buy? It's rarely modern. That old New England charm means older plumbing, older heating, and the kind of upkeep that loves to whisper, "This will be another $2,000. Utilities stack up, groceries cost more, and you feel it faster because the local economies are smaller. Less competition, more control. It looks like a peaceful town. But when you stack fixed income against constant erosion, you start to see the cracks. One retiree put it best. It feels like quicksand, but dressed like a beach town. A real home moment. A retired teacher opens her third heating bill of the season, sets it on the counter, next to a mug she never finishes anymore. Outside, the snow looks beautiful from behind the window. But in her bank account, another withdrawal prepares itself. Like the snowplow she hears down her street at 4:47 a.m. Every sound reminds you, this isn't vacation. This is your life now. Number 8, New York. Retire in style, they say. You can live near the theater, the medical care, the grandchildren, but fast forward a few years, and the math rewrites that dream. New York doesn't just have high taxes, it has layered bills. If there's a fee, a fare, or a surcharge, New York has it. With local flair. Housing is brutally expensive, especially in suburbs meant to be retirement safe zones. But more than that, New York taxes most forms of retirement income. While there are partial exemptions, they rarely stretch as far as retirees assume. Property taxes soar in counties outside NYC, and they're tied to inflated home values, not retirement status. So you can be 72, frugal, and sensible, and still face annual tax hits that feel like punishment. Some retirees stay for family, but many leave later than they should. After years of quietly burning through the savings they once thought would last. New York isn't a thief. It's more like a very classy pickpocket. Number 7. Maine is peace. Maine is fog over pine trees. Maine is the bookstore on the corner that still sells hand-stitched journals. But for retirees, Maine is also expensive in ways few anticipate. Heating costs dominate most of the year. Fuel oil isn't optional. And older homes make insulation a challenge. Groceries, healthcare, and utilities stay high due to regional isolation. And despite low crime and beautiful coastlines, the financial pressure grows constant. Retirement income is taxed here, with limited exemptions. And while property taxes aren't the highest, they're enough to gnaw at your fixed monthly cushion. Maine's quietness is a gift. But silence can also mean limited options. Fewer service providers, fewer healthcare facilities, fewer pricing wars. And that means higher costs for the same products. Here, peace has a price tag, and it doesn't always come with a warning label. A micro-real moment. A couple left Boston to retire in a cottage an hour north. They loved the sound of wind in the trees and having only one neighbor. But last month, the generator died. Snow cut the power lines. The nearest hardware store was 40 miles away. They spent 3 nights heating soup on a wood stove, wearing gloves to bed. Still, their property tax notice arrived right on time. Number 6. Minnesota. The heartbeat of the Midwest. Minnesota quietly feels like safety. Big enough to have amenities, small enough to feel personal. But step into retirement here, and the numbers tell a different story. Yes, Social Security is taxable. Yes, pensions and withdrawals from savings accounts will get taxed too. The state does offer partial relief for lower incomes, but even middle-class retirees find themselves caught in the chart's crosshairs. The real problem, however, comes every winter. Minnesota cold isn't poetic, it's structural. Insurance premiums increase. Snow removal costs stack up. And daily life turns into a careful sequence of warm boots, early darkness, and frozen decisions. Utility bills spike dramatically. And the cost of just existing, in warmth, comfort, and safety, grows higher than many estimate in their spreadsheets. Minnesota has culture, healthcare, cleanliness, but it also builds quiet pressure. Like ice on the windowsill at 5 a.m., whispering, "This home costs more than you thought." This is the first half of the list, and already you're starting to see the pattern. The states don't feel dangerous on the surface. In fact, most retirees arrive feeling lucky. It's only later they ask the harder question. Why does everything cost more when I stopped earning? That's by design. Because confusion here is currency. Most state systems weren't built for modern retirement. They're old frameworks patched with new numbers. That means the pressure isn't always visible. It's distributed. A little from heat, a little from tax, a little from insurance, utilities, groceries, medical care. Death by financial paper cuts, politely delivered every 30 days. More states are still to come. And the worst of them? They hide their traps inside the dream. Number 5. Washington. No state income tax. A retiree's dream, right? That's what they tell you, up front. And that part's true. But taxes aren't the whole picture. Not anymore. Because what Washington gives you in tax relief, it quietly takes back in everything else. Home prices, for starters, have shifted far beyond what most fixed incomes can manage. As of late 2025, median home values in many counties hover above $500,000. And near Seattle, or the surrounding tech corridors, that number becomes laughable. Even retirees who bought decades ago are realizing wealth on paper doesn't pay property taxes. And in Washington, those taxes are climbing. Add sharply rising insurance premiums, especially in wildfire risk zones, and the math starts to feel unsteady. Utilities? Costly. Healthcare? Scarce if you step too far from the urban centers. Groceries? Driven up by distribution costs and demand spikes. Washington knows how to charge gently, consistently, and always with interest. Even the absence of income tax is a mirage when other bills gain weight. And here's the angle no one talks about. New retirees enter Washington already competing with younger, higher income tech professionals. You're not just aging in place. You're aging next to someone whose Amazon stock paid for their Tesla. And the market never pauses for nostalgia. Washington rewards wealth, but it demands resilience. And for retirees, not all chapters were written with this kind of pressure in mind. Number 4. Colorado draws people in with photos, mountains, blue skies, clean air, vibrant retirement communities. But once you touch the ground reality, something shifts. Because Colorado is no longer that budget-friendly mountain escape. It's become a playground for the well-capitalized. Housing values have spiked, not just in Denver or Boulder, but in once quiet corners like Fort Collins, Castle Rock, and even rural mountain towns. More retirees chased the dream, until they became the demand curve. Now, a smaller house in a retreat town can cost as much as a luxury unit in another state. Sure, Social Security is exempt, but almost all other retirement income is taxed, depending on how much you draw. The exemptions are narrow. Fixed income doesn't stretch as far when elevation adds cost to everything. Insurance gets tricky in fire-prone zones. Property taxes have historically been lower, but they're adjusting to rising home appraisals as we speak. And HOA fees in new suburban builds. Let's not even begin. Groceries, essentials, day-to-day living. They follow the economy of a region catering to professionals, not pensioners. Worst of all, for many, what starts as "let's retire in nature" slowly becomes "let's drive an hour into the mountains once a month to see the nature," while living in subdivision debt. Colorado is breathtaking, but it can quietly leave your savings breathless too. Number 3. Maine. Yes again, because sometimes a state deserves more than one warning. Maine sticks with you, not just because of the fog or the feeling of staring out over the Atlantic at dusk, but because it's the kind of place where the slowdown feels alluring until the bills arrive one by one. We already talked about heating, about isolation pricing, but let's talk about healthcare. Access is thinning fast. Older populations are growing rapidly, and rural hospitals are closing. That means retirees drive an hour for urgent care, or wait longer than medically advisable. That matters more when your age makes every appointment important. Transportation costs? Quietly devastating. Cars rust faster here. Maintenance isn't just about oil changes. It's salt damage, tire wear, slippery roads, cracked windshields. Add in high insurance premiums due to unpredictable weather conditions. And you're spending retirement checking the weather app before checking your finances. And maybe you think, it's fine, I'll just stay home more. But smaller towns here weren't built for indoor isolation. That comes with its own costs, mental, emotional, and physical. Maine does something subtle. It says, come rest a while. And when you do, it starts collecting. A real-life pause. A widower chose Maine for solitude, bought a cozy cabin with a small deck that overlooks the woods. He used to fish, but this winter the road washed out, repairs delayed, deliveries stopped, and one day the generator ran out of fuel, the week his arthritis flared. He boiled snow for dishwater, asked himself, not for the first time, did I retire into peace or isolation? Number 2, New Mexico. They promise warmth, dry air, healing energy, easy living. You drive through Santa Fe. You feel something. Artists, retirees, desert freedom. But then the lights come on, the mail piles up, and the spreadsheet grows heavier. New Mexico taxes most retirement income. There are age-based exemptions, but the actual savings vanish quickly if your income's even slightly above average. Home values vary widely, but maintenance is non-negotiable. Adobe and stucco charm bring high upkeep costs. And HOA fees in gated retirement communities? They're climbing right alongside utilities. And speaking of utilities, cooling costs dominate here. Heat is no longer just a mild bother, it's a public health concern. Medical systems in rural regions? Fragile. Staffing shortages. Equipment delays. Limited specialists. And the biggest concern, water. New Mexico is quietly on the front line of a water crisis. And any area with water concerns will see creeping costs over time through surcharges, usage regulations, and insurance shifts. This is a place where you can inhale deeply. But what you breathe in peace, you often exhale in dollar signs. Retirement here isn't always what it looks like from a yoga mat on a sunlit patio. Sometimes it's just dry air, dwindling funds, and an evaporating sense of control. A quiet, real scene. A retired nurse opens her water bill, double what it was in 2021. She calls the city. They say it's the drought surcharge. She looks out her window at the gravel yard, the cactus still standing firm. There's no lawn to water. And yet, the drought's in her kitchen now, poured straight into her Amazon-bought coffee cup. Number 1, Nevada. The ultimate bait, no state income tax, sunny skies, low humidity. Vegas aside, the marketing is subtle, but powerful. Retirees flood in, tired of snow, taxes, complexity. But once they're settled, the climate changes. Southern Nevada has become one of the most expensive places in the country for car insurance. Premiums here spike due to accident rates, weather events, and surging repair costs from regional supply shortages. Healthcare. Overwhelmed. The system was never built for this many aging residents. Services are delayed, and many specialists are booked months in advance. Homeowners associations in retirement neighborhoods have become quasi-governmental, levying surprise fees, fines, and assessments, all for lawns, security gates, or rules about how many plants you can have outside. And one by one, bills arrive. Not massive ones, but relentless. The electric bill after 3 weeks of triple-digit heat. The water bill for your desert landscaping. The tax notice from out-of-state pension earnings. The HOA reminder that your beige paint faded by 2 Pantone shades. Nevada doesn't rob you. It picks your pockets over and over while asking if you're still comfortable. And this brings us to a final scene. Not dramatic, but honest. A husband sits at a small round table, going through his folder of retirement documents. He's circling numbers, making calculations he thought he'd never make after 70. Behind him, the TV glows softly. The channel is showing white sand beaches, blue water, laughter, but the volume's off. Because he's already lived that dream. He's already felt how fast the illusion turns into an invoice. No one told him this part. Now, he's living it. Retirement used to be a chapter. Now, it's a calculation. Some retirements are stolen quietly. Not with a crash, but with a whisper. It's not a scam in the shadows. It's a structure in plain sight. A system that doesn't take everything, just enough to make peace feel expensive and rest feel rationed. The places we just explored? They don't hate retirees. They just weren't built for them. They were built for growth, for speed, for revenue that never slows just because your legs do. And the result? A map of mistakes, sold in the language of dreams. Beautiful weather, no income tax, vibrant community. But when it comes time to write the checks, reality shows up early. Groceries don't care about your pension. Insurance doesn't ask if you're tired. Property tax doesn't skip a year because you got older. And now, here's the part no state dares to put in a brochure. It's not just these 10. Every state, yes, even the best ones, have a version of this hidden meter. For some, it's taxes. For others, it's cost of care, long-distance drives for basics, or community fees that feel small until they aren't. But here's where this story flips. Because while this was a countdown, this was never really a list. It was a lens. A way to see the difference between the promise of retirement and the math of it. We imagined retirement like an off switch, a break in time. But what we got was just the same world, charged monthly, without the raise, without the bonuses, without the fallback plan. Retirement in America has become something different, a lifestyle that you no longer manage, but are managed by systems, by surprises, by statements that don't bend just because your budget can't anymore. And maybe you're watching this because you've already felt it. Maybe your parents are living it. Or maybe you've been wondering why the number in your head, the one you thought meant enough, suddenly doesn't go as far as it used to. You're not crazy. That number changed without ever being announced. Why? Because the game was never really about how much you saved. It was about how deep the leak runs. Real moment. A daughter walks her retired father through a healthcare bill on her laptop. He's told it's an out-of-network mistake. She's told it's normal, but the screen doesn't care. It shows a number neither of them expected. And by the time they hit pay, something else has been withdrawn. Not just money, but ease, confidence, safety. That soft curtain that used to be called retirement. And now here's what no one says out loud. People aren't always retiring too early. They're just retiring into the wrong places. Places that told the right story, with the wrong structure. A warm climate, a slower pace, but layered over a financial system designed without the retiree in mind. Some states offer tax relief, but punish you in real estate. Some skip income tax, but hike utilities or route medical needs into long drives and longer bills. A $400,000 home might sound affordable, until the property tax sticks around like a second mortgage. A low-tax town feels like a blessing, until water, Wi-Fi, and weather damage start feeding off your fixed income. None of these systems make headlines, because they don't break all at once. They just quietly shave down security, the way wind softens a rock. Not easily, but inevitably. And this is why retirees and smart planners need more than just optimism. They need math. They need projections with room for surprise. They need truth that doesn't hide behind friendly state slogans or sunset-tinted ads. Because in 2025, and in this economy, retirement isn't just about what you've earned. It's about what's left after the system finishes its turn. Let me say that again. Retirement isn't about how much you've earned. It's about how much is taken. Year by year. Bill by bill. Closing moment. A retired couple in their 70s sits on their porch. The sun is setting. The dog's bowl is empty. A child's toy rolls under the patio table. They'll find it in a week. There's laughter in the house behind them. Smart bulbs flick on. Somewhere, a timer dings. And still, the man leans forward. Looks out at the neighborhood. The trees. The home they gave up moving to, and the city they kept instead. Not because it had a beach, not because of tax loopholes, but because it had something he could count. Not just in dollars, but in peace. Because sometimes the smartest financial decision feels boring on paper. Sometimes the best place to retire is the one where your money doesn't have to explain itself every month. So, when you build your plan, don't just look for the dream. Count the costs, read the fine print, and in between the numbers, ask the real questions. Where does my money go when I stop earning? Is this state rewarding my years, or quietly renting them back to me? They won't include that question on the flyer, but they should. They want one that's smart enough to work. Before you go, hit that subscribe button. We don't just review, we expose. From the hype to the hidden failures to the tricks brands hope you'll never question. So, hit like, tap subscribe, and join thousands of smart shoppers who already know. Smart spending starts with asking smarter questions.